too exciting. Will there be skill level queuing systems, i.e., if my skill is intermediate, will I be matched against other intermediate players, or where we will be all thrown in together?
Yeah, doing something like an MMR or something like that is interesting.
It's hard. It's
yes, it's difficult. That's something that I think we're definitely interested in doing. The thing I would say is that it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. We just don't have the big, like, in order to really do that and not make the experience really bad in terms of and what I mean by really bad is you have to wait 10 minutes to find a game. If you've played competitive mode in Overwatch or League or any of these other games, you've probably likely experienced the fact that it's like, hey, you have to wait 5 minutes to find a fair match, and that kind of sucks. And so the way you need to be able to do that is you need to have a massive player base to pull from in order to balance that properly. So I can't imagine we do that in the pre-alpha or the alpha. As far as for the future, I would love to do that, or at least do something where we're gating people so that newbies are not getting completely stomped on and styled on by folks that they've been playing for hundreds of hours. And I think that's something that would be important. So it's something I think we're definitely interested in. I'm not sure the exact way we will look to solve it.
Yeah, it is a super tricky problem when you're not dealing with one-on-ones. We can get on Discord and talk about rating systems all day long.
Yeah,
it's super nerdy and fun.
Lethal Wave, thank you for the sub. Nades, thank you for gifting that sub to Viatrix.
Super Mickey J from Discord, what are your thoughts on damage buffs, e.g. Empower, Squall, and so on, and their place in the game? I have many thoughts on them. So originally their intent for the damage buffs was to reward you for behaving in a certain way, for having certain conditions met, and so on, and they were very powerful because of that. Over time, the game has changed since those skills were added. Squall, which is the damage buff when you're in the air, is more or less a constant state at this point, with hover, with all of the movement abilities. So Squall is just like a flat damage bonus. Empower, with the way mana regens. You can knock off empowered shots pretty frequently, and you get things that combines. You get Squall and Empower combined, and all of a sudden you have a really beefy damage buff. Something like Frenzy, on the other hand, is actually you actually have to sort of try to be frenzied. It is not an easy state to maintain, and that reward. Jesse, you called it a flat damage bonus. Oh, that's so embarrassing, I did. It is not a flat damage bonus, it is a damage multiplier. So,
you all are a bunch of nerds.
All a bunch of nerds.
Just want to put that out there.
We're old men nerds. So there's a couple things to talk about. One is conditionality. Squall is always on, or has a really high uptime, and I would rather keep thematically to the intent that you are an air wizard. You fly in the air and rain down havoc. So changing it so its condition was harder to meet is more appealing than changing it so it's 10% less of a buff. I would rather make things more difficult to achieve and have commensurate rewards than I would to, hey, you spent a skill point, here's like 5 or 10% more damage. It feels too vanilla, it feels uninteresting, whereas taking close encounters and making you be much more in someone's face, as opposed to kind of close, or empower. This, I'm just spitballing, this is not actually plans for anything, don't take anything as gospel. Having a empower trigger off of sorceries, or have empower have a cooldown on it, so it's once every 10 seconds it can fire, but no more than that. It's way more interesting for players to make those decisions than it is to have a smattering of 10% buffs and 15% buffs, where you spend a skill point and you feel like, well, I guess that was a fine skill point to spend. It's better for skills to feel like game changing.
I would say, so there's a couple,
That was a lot of work.
Couple of quick questions here. Shinra asked, what is the max concurrent players you're targeting? For the current map, what we've been testing with is maximum up to 50, and we'll see if we'll extend that. We might actually try some tests where we make that bigger. Right now, we have to improve server performance before that's really possible. So that's kind of where we're targeting it. Tackles or T4 Kickles asked, there's been a couple of games where the circle has been in the water. That seems crazy. So if that's true, I haven't seen that in bugs.
I give Josh bugs every time it happens.
Okay, if people see that, please screenshot that and put it into the PT Bugs channel, because that would be really helpful. But this is also an interesting question. Is there any plan to have wind push your teammate like it does yourself in duels or squads?
No.
That would make for some nice shots.
It'd be great. It'd be terrible.
That's kind of awesome, actually. I kind of like it.
Ugh.
I still want to get the boomerang in, where you actually like throw wind at someone and it pulls them to you, because I think that would be kind of a fun skill to do, which we may end up doing.
This is when things get crazy. When we're like, let's do some fun things.
Yeah.
Have you guys looked into what causes the jump bug when reviving a teammate? The affected teammate is constantly jumping on their screen, or their jumps are delayed and feels clunky and unsafe for your experience. Sometimes upon revival, players get stuck in a jump animation when it comes to feel like a rubber band or frame skipping. That's from just Yuna with 2 O's on either side. So there were a bunch of revive fixes in 16, so the patch that goes out tomorrow or shortly thereafter, around jumping and around the occasionally the player's body or where you could revive them was different than where their representation was in your client, and so things were out of sync when players died in midair. Some fixes were done to that, so hopefully come soon, that should not be a problem. And if it is still, we'll fix it then.
Sabbath Games.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Sabbath Games asked, are there any plans to rework the initial drop system at the start of the game? Not any concrete plans right now. The reason why it was set up this way was mainly to make it so that we found a way to give players a chance to see a little bit of where folks are dropping in, as well as strategize where they want to go, and to add a bit of variety to the way we do it. That was really the initial. We actually haven't revisited this feature in
forever,
9 months
forever,
or something.
Yeah.
So it's probably due for taking a look at it and seeing what's there. We just haven't heard much as far as like complaints about it. Most people generally tend to understand what it is and think it's fine. It's more of a question of like, if there's something we think there's really cool we could do there or something like that, we would potentially do it. But as it stands, it just hasn't really kind of stood out as things that people would be interested in seeing updated.
Mystic Coke, this is so when I wish Cardell was here. Mystic Coke asks, how do you guys organize the development and design process of the game with your team?
That is a huge question.
It's a great question.
To give you like a very high level answer. So the way the teams are actually broken out here is we have several different, we call them pods, but they do different things. One is more gameplay in-match focused. So it's a group of engineers and artists that all work on the in-match stuff. So adding new classes, gauntlet changes, things like that. We have another group that focuses on more of the out-of-match stuff, so things like leaderboards tend to fall into that bucket. We have one group that's all on the map, so the map pod that's like both artists and designers, and they focus on building and making changes to the map. And then we have another one that is mostly on the character side, like the cosmetics and character side, and so they're just cranking out the character stuff, which unfortunately we don't share with you guys, although we probably should at some point. So we're making lots and lots of skins, but we just don't have them in the game. And so that's roughly the way it breaks out. So it's sort of in-match, out-of-match, cosmetics, and map are kind of the major development side of that. Then we have, as on top of that, the QA infrastructure of like where all of our QA testers come from, and then obviously the operations of the studio itself. So everyone else that participates in the operation of the studio that is not necessarily in the nuts and bolts of the game.
And then as for what's the design process like?
Oh yeah, design process. That was just the structure.
That was just the structure of the thing. I can't answer this in a way.
I roll out of bed one morning and I make decrees.
I was like, I can't answer this in a way that's not going to sound flippant. We get into arguments a lot. We play Rochambeau for it.
No, I mean, I think mostly the way it works is there's a handful of us that have different stakeholders for different parts of the game. Jesse's like mostly on the like system class side is kind of his like major stakeholder side. Of course, he has feedback and cares a lot about the other parts, but several of us have different inputs that we want to do. We meet periodically and we say, I want to do this to the game. We talk about what it is we want to change. We get feedback from other people on the team. We get data from what's actually going on in the game. We get potentially feedback from you guys in the community on it, and then we make those changes. And so we basically try to come up with those ideas on what we're seeing, as well as just in general what we think needs to be added to the game.
As long as you guys hug after yelling, it's okay.
It's true.
It's funny because I've now worked with Seth for 11 years. 10 years.
Yeah. I realized that my 10-year anniversary with working with you, Damon, and Ogles was like January 7th.
I missed out.
Yeah.
And like our art director I've known since '97. Ogles, the CTO, and I have worked together since 2001.
So we've been working together for a long time.
So we argue and it's fine.
And like, the arguments is more just like conflict around finding the best idea. Like the goal behind that is just like, how can we make sure that we get the best idea wins, and then we put together the best option. I saw some people asking about character customization stuff. So I think in one of the future updates coming up, we're going to add more skins back into the game.
Yeah, probably not next one, the one after.
Yeah, so there will be more skins coming, so there'll be more options.
Did we answer questions about the NDA and streaming yet?
I answered that question earlier. The quick thing is we are planning to lift the NDA hopefully early in 2019, and ideally we'll have in the next couple of weeks a concrete announcement on that.
Random suggestion from Blazing Headshot. Do you think you could represent the teammate markers on the map with beams? That's a good idea.
Do you think you'll put a beam in
the
actual map?
When you mark the map with right click on the minimap?
Yeah, no, there's a bunch of stuff
down.
that I think could be really good for that, that would make that stuff really better. That's definitely an improvement that we'd want to do. Sabbath Games asked, can you go over what's included in each of the founder packs? We'd love to see the pictures to go along with the text on the website. Yeah, so we were talking about actually teasing, because we have the like original Founders Pack, the limited edition Founders Pack skin is done, and so we saw it. I looked at it earlier this week, and so we need to tease that with you guys and show it and get it out there. We'll probably get some of that stuff ready to hopefully be able to show it. Some of those things were when we first started just concepts, and so that they're not fully fleshed out yet. And so when that stuff's all together, we'll probably release that to all of you so you can see the skins and stuff that you'll be getting.
Hero Monkey. How long have you been developing the game, and what did you have to go through to make it? I like the second part of that a lot.
We started working on the game in early 2017, and that's like early concept phase, which concept really means you're pitching, you're throwing around ideas on a whiteboard. As far as what we've gone through to make it, I mean, probably 4 full combat reboots, 2 reboots of the art style.
3 or 4 for classes and skills.
Yeah. So it's like, and what I mean by reboots is like the game was once melee focused, like melee only with swords. And so, and what ended up happening, and hopefully at some point I'll tell the full story, but basically what started to come out of it is the only fun things were the magic side. And then when we started to make the magic spells interact with each other, that's when we really were like, oh God, we're onto something really awesome. This is really, really cool. But it didn't start that way. There was magic, there was swords and shields, there were bows and arrows, there was lots of stuff. And so it really, and that's because in those early days when you're prototyping, you're just kind of trying everything, you're throwing stuff around to see what it would feel like. So that was, and that was just kind of a very different game. The game changed a lot over time. At some point we'll put up some of the early original pitches for what this game would be, maybe. But yeah, and then as far as the art style, like the art, we've gone through several iterations to the art style. We'll probably go through several iterations on the HUD, for example, over time. So I saw some people asking about RNG for skills. Did you not want to answer that one?
I am happy to answer it.
I feel like we answer it every time.
It is something we answer every time. I have a much more thoughtful post on Reddit about it, where I won't miss things. It's one of those. It's sort of a very high level philosophical question about the role of RNG in advancement and progression in BRs or otherwise roguelikes. The short answer is we think about it, but there are no plans to currently change it. We just had a long meeting on it, yesterday, 2 days ago. So it comes up and we talk about it. We discuss the concerns you guys are bringing up. We discuss our own concerns about it, ways to make it better or different. But ultimately, I think we're happy with where it is right now. It adds sufficient differentiation from match to match. Even if you pick the same classes, you're often presented with different skills that will force you to play in different ways than you might have otherwise. The different skills cause you to prioritize different items and gauntlets, sorceries differently than you might otherwise. They lead to a lot of very surprising moments that you might not be exactly prepared for when you start a given match. The downsides of the RNG are, like you say, it is not normal for an RPG or a BR to have. I guess most BRs don't even have classes, but to not have complete control over your character's progression. It can feel bad if you pick Frostborn and go the entire match without getting Frozen Alacrity. You feel potentially like your identity or reason for picking that has been denied to you, and that's rough. But yeah, no new plans, nothing planned to change it, but it's always on the watch.
Yeah, there's a couple of really good questions here. Ballsmeat, who is AKA Wizard of Oz in game and Discord. What is the map's name? Can you elaborate on some of the planned themes for some of the current regions? We have one new region, one new biome that's going to be coming in, not in this update, but probably in the next one. And so I mentioned this a little bit before with the lore side. We'll be talking about that more hopefully soon, and kind of what is outside of what's outside of this island, what's outside of the world you see right now. We've been working on developing a lot of that stuff, so hopefully that will be available. We can cover some of it. Will we see more of a mage world than Earth-like? Yes, we're definitely making some changes to this that will feel very different. There's a big change that I don't want to spoil that's going to be coming soon to the overall look of the map. So that will be coming. So there you go. There's a quasi leak for you. Then he asked, will we get new attacks and spells of the current elements anytime soon? So I talked a little bit about this. We don't have any gauntlets that we're ready to imminently release right now, but we have prototyped a bunch of stuff, and we will be doing that over time. We just haven't done it yet. What I wanted to ask you, Jesse, is as a part of why I stick to and play games over and over, besides the fun, is my love of leveling up an account. Will you be implementing anything like this? And if so, will you create a prestige system so I can keep going at it?
I'm going to answer that question real quick, or in 1 second. I have to, I got a fellow named Maid just said, woo, Spellbreak. Maid's a real good dude. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. He's the fellow I just told you about before we started the stream.
Nice.
Yes, I love me some grinding and leveling and making numbers go up in perpetuity. We were just talking about this yesterday. Yes, there are plans. The exact nature of them haven't been finalized yet, so I won't talk about it more than yes, there are plans. A bunch of games do a wide variety of things, from prestige systems to Paragon systems to infinite levels to infinite gear, ranking. There's all sorts of progression systems. I love them all. And so yes, I will. I'm right where with you.
Loxley, thank you for the sub. I see a lot of people with, I think, some really good ideas as far as asking about additional key bindings, things like an auto loot filter. Those all seem really interesting. You should definitely make sure that you put that in the feature request, or sorry, the feedback form, so that we capture those. We definitely want to add more key bindings, but it'd be really interesting to hear what you want added. So this is, for example, when we've made changes to things like adding more mouse sensitivity options. That's all community driven. That's mostly from people asking us to add that, and so we want to hear from you guys, because everyone plays differently. We had, if you play with your mouse in your left hand, we want to know what key bindings you would want in order to enable that. So let us know, because we may not have a person on the team that plays the same way you do. So be sure to send that to us.
I love this question, even though I realize we will probably never do it, but I love it. Snehusan, will you guys be the first BR game to let us filter items, so when we run over, we can loot only what we care about? I love that idea so much. I never want to see certain items in my UI. It's unlikely though.
Not Too Good asked, hey, a really big problem is 4+ teams meeting up mid to late game, creating a cluster every single game. It's fine if this happens every once in a while. It's natural. It literally happens every game. How will you fix this? So we actually just had a meeting yesterday talking about match pacing and how we want to handle kind of like changing some changes to the map. I think some of this ends up, the map right now is relatively homogeneous in terms of loot, so you can kind of find good loot everywhere. And so I think what we're likely going to end up doing is not making that the case, so that it's actually more disparate. Also, I think things like the shrines end up working pretty well to try and create these hotspots and finding ways to actually make that work. But over time, things like third partying is actually just a difficult thing to deal with in battle royale game modes, just because it ends up being like it's kind of just part of what these games are all about. It's that will occasionally happen. It is something we're looking into as far as like ways to fix the sort of pacing problem. It's really to find a way to make it so that what can we do to gather more data on what's actually happening, and how can we pace the match so that there's a lot of excitement initially in the middle, and then you have a steady kind of stream of interesting stuff happening all the way to the end, with the end being really satisfying. And so that's something that we're definitely working on. As far as exactly how we will fix it, I don't know, but we are aware of it, and it's something that we are trying to design for.
I get a kick out of this question because it comes up here not infrequently, let's say. A few folks are asking, Slowfall boots, why? So Slowfall boots, spoiler for next patch, not the one that's tomorrow or Friday, are going to get turned off for a little while they go to the corner and think about what they've done and what they want to be when they grow up. Because as much fun as it is having trolley items like that in the game, like I said very much earlier, the game has changed from where it used to be. And so they're way less useful than they once were.
Tumpy, thank you for the tier 1 sub. Hey, I'm Hart asked if we're ever going to add planes.
Planes! Flying griffins. Let's see. Controller plans.
So I mean, I think we'll eventually add controller support. There are some very enterprising, crazy people in Discord that have figured out a way to map a controller to make this work. So if you ask about that in Discord, you can find some of their mappings and what they're doing software-wise. That's awesome. We did, in the early prototyping for the gameplay, we did try to take into account how this would feel on a controller, so we could eventually bring this to other platforms. So definitely looking to do that. It will likely be in for release. I'm not sure when we'll actually get to it as far as the early development phase.
I have no life, but I don't care. Can you confirm the theory about the magic being related to the sloths? I like this theory a lot. Will you consider adding objectives to the map, such as NPCs that grant buffs or control areas that grant higher rarity items from I Am Guru?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is, shrines were originally initiated to do exactly this, and it's kind of our first take on it. It's something that I don't think any of us are really satisfied with where that mechanic is right now, but it does an okay job. It does a pretty good job of doing exactly that, which is basically having a sub-objective or having a reason to be like, hey, this is a little bit riskier, but I'm going to go for it anyway, or trying to give you some strategic reasons. Doing an NPC or doing, sort of NPC vendors where you could get stuff and things like that feel like it could be really cool and valuable to add to the game over time. Certainly doing control areas and letting you upgrade at forges or whatever could be really cool too, and I think that's something we will get to, but that kind of all plays into the same sort of area that shrines currently take in the game.
A whole bunch of folks are just asking us to nerf/delete teleport. It is
before it was lightning, so lightning gauntlet. So there you go.
I mean, we can fix it. We can start deleting everything. So
yeah,
run around and pocket sand each other.
Yeah, it's just empty.
So teleport. We're talking about teleport. What we want to do with it. It is on the list. I think I said in the 16 patch notes. That 17 will be a larger set of balance stuff. So there's a whole bunch of things that have been mentioned today that we're talking about for that one. And teleport might be in there. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, if we remove all the features, then players can't complain about the features.
No, then you can play with lack of features.
Viatrix said, "Give us back old Crosshair." I can't tell if you're trolling or not.
No, there's a lot of discussion about old Crosshair versus new Crosshair.
The new Crosshair is so much better. It's unbelievable. Hey, I'm Hart had a follow-up question. Do you hope to see a competitive future in the game? I discussed this in the Spellbreak Answers video. We should probably just link to the YouTube. You can see some of them on there. They go through some of the stuff and answer that, and so you can see the details of that question on that one. Which classes gauntlets are currently your favorite?
I really want to say the one I'm working on right now, but it's not out, is it?
You can't say that one yet.
When it could, it's really good. I still and forevermore I toxicologist because of Vanishing Mists.
Vanishing Mists
always
is one of the most fun skills in the game.
Always makes me really smiley. Zealots. Sully, one of the programmers, and I have been long time Zealots proponents. Just so we're clear though, not Pyro and Zealots, because people have opinions about that.
For me, for the longest time, I've always been Firestone, and I typically go Bulwark. I like to do Bulwark and Pyromancer, but occasionally I had a lot of fun when we had the Stone Amulet in that would pop you in the air. Going Stone Shaper. What was the name of the wind class? I can't remember the name.
The one that we have in game right now?
Tempest? Tempest. Well, it was something else originally, we changed it to Tempest.
What was it before?
I can't remember. It was something weird, Stormwalker or something. That one was really fun because there was a build that I made with the amulet that was like a really fun one to do. My other fun one, like Jesse mentioned, is I really like doing Vanishing Mists with poison and ice, where you actually vanish and then snipe. That's super fun. If anyone is like, especially in solo, that can be really fun.
God, no! Don't! Gauntlets are definitely not created from the skulls of sloths. It's so not canon.
So we're coming close to wrapping up on this, so we should find a couple of good questions and answer them.
We've burned through all the ones I had from Reddit and Discord today. Any plans on adding other one-time use consumables, traps, seals, totems, and so on from Cryax? We like to talk a lot about doing weird potions every once in a while.
Yeah, consumables
that can leverage the skill system or other things we've done to create bigger effects or sort of more game-changey things. No concrete plans, but we're always talking about them.
I'll try to rapid fire a few of these. Do you consider custom game mode for streamers with etc. with a spectator mode? Fights in Spark would look so great. Yeah, so absolutely, like that's on the list of things that we'd love to add eventually, along with like custom games to really enable things like competitive play. I think that can be really good in like casting and all that stuff. Are there any plans to implement team buffs where you can find throughout the map and activate? Ooh. That feels like similar to what you just said on the potion side, or something we could eventually do with a class going forward. Have you thought about having it where teammates that are playing together can combine spells? You can do that. As far as like finding more ways to do that, I think that there's something interesting there, but we don't have any concrete plans for that. Avon Borenson, I can't pronounce your whole name. Are you planning on posting any more community-made highlight reels on your YouTube channel anytime soon? Yes, I think Gordon's actually working on that like this week, so hopefully we'll get one out this week.
Where'd it go? It like popped. Are there any plans to implement other wearable items aside from amulets, belts, boots? For example, rings from Why So Easy 420. Why so easy? So we were talking yesterday or maybe Monday about other item-based stuff we can do with the game. Not specifically more wearables, but things that would potentially interact with other systems in different ways. Yeah, no hard plans for it, but it is making loot more interesting is certainly an interesting game space. And on top of that, are you Star Mech? Are there any changes coming to looting mechanics, picking up things that you're not looking at? It's an ongoing struggle.
Is that just a bug?
Yeah, there's some bugs with like what you're facing versus what's closest to your crosshair versus what. So yes, it's on the list.
Let's each answer one more.
One more? I'm gonna go find a good one.
Hey, I'm Hart. Thanks for the sub.
Someone asked a really juicy one. Do you want to do an esport one?
I already talked. People can see my answer to that one.
Oh, you got the Spellbreak, the YouTubes. Do you guys do weekly development logs? We can talk about doing public roadmap-y
Yeah, I'll talk a
things.
little bit about that.
That's an interesting one.
And Zyx, who asked, like, have you looked into making it easier to upgrade your founder packs? Yeah, that's definitely a pain point right now. We know it is. Unfortunately, that's just a necessity, like kind of where we're at with the platform. I'd love to improve that. Definitely, if you have any issues with that, feel free to email us at helpme@proletariat.com. We'll look into fixing it for you. So public roadmap stuff, yeah. So like weekly development logs. We're trying to get more into streaming, so Jesse and I will likely do a Q&A stream every single time we do an update, so when we have the sort of things. Although these have mostly been general Q&A and not necessarily about
one day we'll get around to doing patch ones.
The specific patch ones. Although, like, you know, maybe it makes sense to actually do these more frequently for a while or something. To find a way to do that. We want to get a more publicly accessible roadmap that actually gives you guys a projection of what's going to be coming over the next, you know, X weeks or months. I don't have a good time frame for when we're going to do that, but we're talking about that a lot internally on the right way to deliver it and make it available. I mean, we've obviously tried to get as much detail as we can out there on places like the Reddit, and you know, as we get closer and we're able to actually lift the NDA, that becomes much more easily available for us. So yes, it's something we really want to do. As far as like weekly dev stuff, I'd be really curious on what you want to know. Like, what would you like to hear weekly from us? Just like what we're currently working on, what's in the game, updates. We, for a long time, early on in Proletariat's life, we did weekly streams where we showed everything that everyone was working on each week, and that was like kind of crazy. I don't know if we'd go back to that.
I don't know if I want to do that again.
But you know, it was really cool, and you know, that's something to consider if we just send out like you know, like either an email or we did a quick stream or we put together a quick video that just shows like here's a couple of cool things that were done in the game. It almost always skews highly for the art team because all their stuff looks so cool, so it's easy to show awesome stuff.
Listen, this is the first game that people want to see spreadsheets all the time.
Yeah, we'll see. And so that's something that we would love to do, but I'd be really curious to hear like what you guys would want to see. The problem with a lot of this content is making sure that it's really valuable to you guys, because it is work for us to make and put together. And so hopefully, you know, things like putting together those patch notes we find really valuable, just because hopefully it like really clearly communicates both like what's happening, what's going to be changing in the game, as well as the reasons why, which is kind of the goal for doing that. So hopefully that gives you guys a lot of context. So if there is a change that you might disagree with on its surface or read into, that like you can really understand kind of what we're trying to go for and realize, I mean, all this stuff is a work in progress. So you know, making sure that it's valuable would be good. So I'd love to do more weekly dev blogs or more to share more development stuff, but like what would you guys want to see, I guess, is my question back.